Hey everybody, this is Jeremy Tiers from Tutor Collegiate Strategies, and you're about to check out the first episode of the Mission Admissions Podcast, a show that's designed to help higher ed become better recruiters, communicators, marketers, and managers. Each week, I'll introduce you to an industry leader or difference maker who will share helpful advice, tips, and strategies that will help you grow professionally and personally. Mission Admissions is a part of the Enrollify podcast network and is made possible by Gecko, an engagement platform that makes it easy for your team to deliver a better student experience. I'm excited to share my first candid conversation, so let's get started. Hey everybody, this is Jeremy Tiers, and welcome to the first episode of Mission Admission, a completely different kind of higher ed podcast. Many of you have been pushing me for the past year to do this, and thanks to the support of Zach, Pat, the team at Enrollify, plus the team at Gecko, I'm excited to finally get this off the ground. My goal is going to be simple. Just like the work I do at Tutor Collegiate Strategies, where I'm the senior director, I want this podcast to help higher ed become better recruiters, communicators, marketers, and managers. Throughout the year, I have thousands of conversations with admissions and enrollment marketing team members at all levels, and I continue to see way too many people only look for professional and personal development in their particular space. You can get all kinds of helpful advice, tips, and strategies to improve things like customer service, your communication, the way you build relationships, your marketing, as well as leadership from industry leaders and difference makers in other spaces. So I'm excited to introduce you to some of those people, and I'm confident that each time you listen, you will walk away with one or more things that you can put into practice immediately. So thanks for checking this out. I really appreciate your time. And with that, I want to introduce you to my first guest, a good friend and literally one of the best human beings I know in the entire world, Jeff Munneke, Vice President of Fan Experience for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx. Jeff has been with the Timberwolves for almost 34 years, which is the longest of anybody in the organization. And when he's not at Target Center, you can probably find him out on 10 Mile Lake in northern Minnesota or out on a golf course somewhere. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, Jeremy, number one, great to see you. It's so fun, and I'm glad we had a chance to exchange some notes, and I'm honored that I'm your first guest. This is fantastic. This is great.
No pressure whatsoever, right?
That's right.
Well, it's game day, and that's not only exciting for you, I know, and the whole city of Minneapolis and you know the Twin Cities in the state of Minnesota, but I gotta believe, right, with the Timberwolves being in the playoffs right now, you've got a lot of attention and eyeballs on you. Probably even more so than normal, right? So talk to me just as the person in charge of fan experience, right, and you're in charge of all of it, what are some of the big things right now that you're reinforcing to your staff so that everybody walks away tonight and in future games with a positive fan experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, here's what I would say. Number one is when the team wins, the hot dogs taste better and the beer gets colder, right? So, you know, for us, people always just say, well, is it tougher when the team doesn't win as much? And unfortunately, we haven't been at this spot in a long time. On the Lynx side, and we also do everything, and we replicate everything that we do on the WNBA side, that we do for the Minnesota Lynx, that we do for the Timberwolves. Now, we've had tremendous success there with 4 championships. On the Timberwolves side, we haven't quite got there yet, but maybe this year's the year, or if not, it's coming soon. But we really try to say, hey, I can't go make baskets. I can't make coaching decisions. I can't go play defense. But what I do own is how I treat people and how I treat our fans. So that is something that we emphasize on a day-to-day basis through our trainings, our orientations, the way we onboard staff, is that you get to own your attitude. How cool is that? We don't need to go ask our owner, Mr. Taylor, for $1 million budget to go treat people nice. You know, that one's free, and we get to own that. And so for us, there are a lot of eyeballs on us. And one of the big challenges for us, frankly, is that we have a sold-out building tonight. and it's a 6:30 start. And so normally it's a 7 o'clock start. So a big challenge for us is to get everybody in that building for the tip at 6:30 for a normally late arriving crowd. So we've messaged and communicated through the course of social media, the different know before you go platforms that we have to go to our season ticket members. But we could not be more excited about welcoming 19,000 people to our house for tonight for game 3.
Yeah, and you hit on a couple of things there that I know I talk about, Jeff, with a lot of college admissions and marketing professors, right, that are listening, that are in the world that I'm living in every day, which is you control, right, everything you do. And it would be great if you had a bigger budget, and it would be great if you had more staff to help you with this event. And this, all of that would be nice, but at the end of the day, right, really focus on what you can control. And if you're in a position of leadership like you are, obviously you can control a little bit more than the next person. So talk to me a little bit just about what a couple of those things, again, specific things in terms of the way you're treating people, right? Like, what are specific things that you've talked to the staff and said, hey, we've seen this work well, we want to double down on this. You know, it's just going to be at a greater level tonight because we're going to have that many more fans in the building.
Sure. And it's one thing that we talk about and drill home in our pre-shift meetings with our staff, the way we onboard staff, the way we go through orientation or recognize staff. So we always say, hey, every single conversation, you may have heard it 50 times that night, but that person, that's their one question for the night. It's the one time that they've asked it. So you have to treat everybody like they're the most important person in the room. Number one, be a great listener. Number two, be a problem solver. Find ways to say yes. There are times when we do have to say no, but let them know the reason why. And so in a marketplace such as this in Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is super competitive, you know, we have basically everything you want to do. You have hockey, baseball, football, soccer, great theater, great arts. So people's disposable income and fans' disposable income really gets stretched. The one thing that we always say is that, hey, somebody may leave us as a fan or a sponsor or a season ticket member because maybe they're frustrated we didn't win enough, or they're frustrated that we didn't draft the right person, they're frustrated about a coaching decision. The one thing that we can't ever have happen is somebody leave us for the attitude of indifference. That is unacceptable. So we just drill home on that. It's just that every single conversation you have, treat them like they're the single most important person in the room. Be a great listener and be a problem solver. So that's what we drill home every night.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense. And I guess that leads me then to this thought that I think would be helpful for the audience to hear from you. You do events of all different sizes throughout the year, right? So game day, 19,000, like you said tonight, or even if it was 10,000, you know, at some point in the year. But you're also doing smaller events. So give me an idea. What are you talking to? And maybe it's the same conversation. Maybe it's something completely different in terms of not just how we make everybody feel like they're getting a personalized experience and an enjoyable fan experience, but when it's a smaller event versus a huge event like this, are there any just key things that you've seen? All right, we've got to be very mindful of this, and those get reiterated to staff.
Jeremy, you hit it. You said personalize the experience, and that's it. And so a lot of the work that we do, whether it's a small event with 50 people or a large event with 19,000 people, is there's a lot of work to get up to that. So if we've done this correctly, so you may own season tickets because it's your family. You want to bring your kids down to games. The next person might be they own season tickets or a fan because business purpose. They bring clients down to games. Next person might be just a basketball nut and a basketball junkie. They just give me more basketball. Next person is just the whole entertainment aspect with their friends and family. So if we do this correctly, we really look at this like a golf course and a golf membership, 365, 24/7. So there's really not a time we're never not engaging. So if we know your name and your spouse's name and your kids' names and who their favorite player is and what are the reasons that they come down, what are the main motivating factors, we can personalize that relationship and those questions that we ask to make sure that they retain our business every year, or we retain their business every year. And if we do this correctly, regardless of wins and losses, it's going to be a situation where they say, you know what, you didn't win as many games as we like this year, but man, do you guys treat me well. I remember when you did this for my kids, or I recall when you did this for my clients that I brought down to a game. So that's really the goal is And what I'd say is that when I first started, almost 34 years ago, I think the mentality in sports, and obviously we didn't have technology like we do today, but the mentality was, okay, end of the season, we'll send out an invoice. We hope you renew your tickets. That is no longer acceptable. We have to really build and value that relationship all throughout the course of the year.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how important is that entry point at the start of the relationship versus how much easier it becomes. All right, you have a brand new, let's play it out. You have a brand new season ticket holder who signs on for season tickets. How much does that first interaction when they bring their family or they bring their friends or they bring again, somebody they work with or a client to a game, if it doesn't go well, do you feel like, okay, there are still things we can do over the course of versus we really have to knock it out of the park in that first interaction for the rest of the interactions to be as successful as we want them to be?
Yeah, another great question. So I think there's a consistency that you want to have there for sure. So once you sell something, I've always believed that there are some sales processes where, okay, we've got this person on, they've just spent $500 or $5,000 or $50,000, go on to the next one. Really, that's when the work starts. That's when you got to make sure, and so we got to make sure that, okay, number one, do you have any questions? Let's go through a rookie orientation. Do you have questions about parking? Where to go? What are the favorite spots to go grab a bite to eat? What are the things that are important to you when you come to the game? Check in the first game. You check in after 30 days. You check in after 90 days. You check in after 120 days. The worst thing that can happen is you sell something and you never talk to that person again. Well, then at the end of the year, when that invoice comes and you haven't rectified a problem or problem solved for them on some things that they may have questions about, well, now it's too late. So if you're doing this correctly, you're going down the process and just saying, how was that first night? How great was it? Well, actually, you know what? Everything was great, but you know what? There's a little bit of gum in my seat. Oh my goodness, we'll let our maintenance crew know right away. We'll get that replaced. Well, that's going to happen right away. Or maybe there's there's an unruly fan sitting really close to us. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting us know. We're going to make sure that, was it a season ticket member or was it a single game buyer? And is that something that we need to adjust to going forward? So if we do that correctly, which I think in most cases we're problem solving long before we ever ask them to retain the business again.
Yeah. How do you scale that though, Jeff? Because again, I think of, a lot of people listening to this. There are a lot of people in the higher ed realm that are sending messages. It could be an email, right? It could be a text message, and it's going to 10,000 people, right? Prospective
Sure.
students, for example. And it has to feel personal, like we've talked about, right? But it also has to be very intentional with the direction of what you're trying to do with it. And then if it's somebody on for example, on your side, the ticket sales side, I got to believe people have hundreds of different accounts. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how are they scaling those conversations so that it's not just one or three or five or seven or nine people that feel good about it and feel like, hey, I'm being taken care of, I'm being listened to. Talk to me about how you scale it. What are some of the things that you found or some of the things that you are doing that seem to be working well?
There's a trick to it, of course, right? Because you have someone that might be spending, $60,000 to sit courtside for the year. And then you have a season ticket member that's spending $500 in, 4 rows from the top of the building.
Yep.
Well, when you see them, they can't be made to feel any different. They have to feel just as important as that courtside seat member. Now, with that, obviously, there's benefit plans and different things that you may do that are higher in nature and higher in scale to that courtside seat member that you'd offer to someone 4 rows from the top. But the trick is you can't make them ever feel like they're a second-class citizen. They have to be made just as important as that courtside seat member. So with that, it goes back to the personalization of that relationship. So are there things that person 4 rows from the top of the building are really important to them? And let's just say that, for an example, they're just a basketball nut. And so in the benefits plan and personalizing that, well, let's put them in front of Coach Finch for a Zoom chat to talk about X and O's. Or perhaps we have a women's clinic to come in and talk a little bit more about X and O's and make sure everybody understands, here's what you're seeing on the court. Now that courtside seat member, they probably are used to having a lot of very extravagant type of opportunities. But for them, it might be because they have all those opportunities. Maybe it's something as simple as, hey, I travel a lot. I entertain a lot of clients. Really, all I need is when I go to San Francisco, can you help me order tickets for the Warriors game? Or if I have a top client coming in and they're coming in and Elton John is playing over at XL over in St. Paul, can you make a call for me to help me with tickets? It might be as simple as that. And so again, whether you're a courtside seat member or somebody four rows from the top, we're going to go back to that personalization and make sure we dial into what's most important for them.
I don't think I've met a single higher ed professional that loved everything about their technology stack. Here's the honest truth. No CRM or SIS will be able to meet all of the needs of all of your team. And that's why I'm a huge fan of Gecko, a student engagement platform that offers customizable modules designed to complement your institution's CRM and SIS. Gecko offers plug-and-play modules that enable your team to deliver memorable student experiences at scale. Their chatbot and texting tools will empower your admissions team to engage with the highest quality prospects by serving as a front line of defense for prospects that have basic questions about the college admissions process. Gecko's event module makes it easy to create awesome online and in-person event experiences one time and then duplicate them throughout the year with just a couple of clicks. Their call center is also an industry leader. No more splitting call lists into a dozen Excel files, scrolling through data to find who you need to call next, or having to manually record who picked up and who didn't. Oh, and did I mention that everything integrates seamlessly into your CRM and SIS? Because it does. So if you're a Slate school, for example, you'll see all of that sweet interaction data in your student's timeline. If you want to level up how you engage with prospective students, but you don't want to disrupt your processes, rip out all your tech, or start a new CRM procurement process, you need to check Gecko out. You can learn more about their offerings at geckoengage.com/Enrollify. And be sure to tell them that Jeremy and the Enrollify team sent you their way. And so are you sending, again, I'm thinking, I know when a lot of people listening to this, for example, who are connecting with prospective students and parents throughout the college search process, right? You're communicating with a huge number of people. How do you get, number one, the person on the other end, whether it's a season ticket holder, or in this case, it might be a prospective student, or it might be their parent, to number one, feel comfortable reaching out and having some of these conversations with, in your case, your staff? Or is it, Jeremy, we just have to be direct and intentional in the questions we ask, and we find that that's the best way to gather all this information to allow us to personalize the process more? I mean,
Yeah, so for me personally, I love face-to-face contact. I would much rather meet with someone face-to-face and ask questions because I think you see body language, you see enthusiasm, you see energy, but maybe not everybody brings the same energy that I would. You know me, I'm practically jumping out of my shoes all the time when I talk to people. There's some people that are a lot more stoic, or some people that just like, you know what, I'm good. I'm super busy. If you just send me text messages, that's fine. Now, the next person might be, hey, you know what? I'm really big on social media. So just hit me up on Twitter. Let's just communicate that way. So one of the questions we're going to ask is, what is the best way to communicate with you? And they're going to come up and just say, you know what? I'm all about, if you can spare a little bit of time to have a coffee or a lunch with me so I can ask some questions, that's great. I'd prefer that myself. But I also have to make sure that people are comfortable getting to know me through a lot of different means. You know, it's funny is with social media and the power of social media, I have people coming up to me at games all the time that read my social media posts and they're like, "You're Jeff Munneke." And like, "I've been following you for 5 years. You're hilarious." I'm like, "Well, I'm not sure if I'm hilarious. I'm certainly trying to engage with fans, but I think you have to show your personality a little bit, whether that's through some social media posts or some text messaging, bring that energy and enthusiasm, but also just kind of match that personality of who you're talking to as well."
how do you ultimately define then success at the end of the day? Like at the end of tonight, tomorrow, whenever you look back, right, on a game or any sort of event that you're involved with, what makes it a success?
Yeah, so there's obviously analytics that you can utilize for that, and sometimes it's very black and white in the sales and service area. Probably more the sales area. Either you hit numbers or you did not. On the service area, it's a little bit more warm fuzzies, right? But one of the things that we do is we survey the heck out of our fans, and so rather than guess and assume what they want, we go ask them. So I'll give you an example. For a number of years, we had a survey that the click-on rate was really high. The click off rate was even higher because it's just simply too long. So you're 15, 20 minutes into it and you realize you're halfway through a survey. That's way too long. So we simply said, you know what, let's condense this and let's basically every single time the game is done, buzzer hits, you're going to get a push notification with the survey that said on the scale of 1 to 5, how did we do? And then there's a spot you can put in feedback. So from that feedback, then myself and our staff will go through every single survey and we'll categorize those into what we call our fan experience pillars. We then build a dashboard from that data, and we also answer every survey too. We answer every survey no matter what, good, bad, and indifferent. But we use those dashboards then to work with our building partners and our teams inside the organization to just say, hey, let's look at the last homestand here. Over the last homestand, here's 5 things that we think are really important to address. 3 of them are great. Let's do more of that. Here's 2 that went sideways on us a little bit. And I'll just make this up. Maybe it's something in concessions, or maybe it's something at our entrance. So, okay, building partners and all the people that are affiliated with working a game, let's talk about that. What's everybody think? How do we affect that? This is something that not me telling you, this is our fans telling us that they want us to adjust. So I'll give you an example. Jeremy, when we started our fan experience area, I came out of running the sales teams and the service teams, and we started this fan experience area really because nobody was doing that in the league. We were always talking about their relationships, which I think we found that we registered really well amongst all our counterparts around the league. We're always in the top 5 or 6, so we felt good about that. But from the experience standpoint, being in a tenant in a city-owned building, we just said, let's start digging into that a little bit. Let's start talking about our entrance and our exit and our concessions and our parking. Well, so the NBA at the time, nobody was doing this. And so they just said, we're going to do this on behalf of everybody. So it's now a fan experience survey. Well, our numbers came back the first time, 30 teams in the league, we're 30th. And that's things that in a lot of cases we didn't control. But we said, we can't be happy about this. And so from that survey and that data, we just said, oh boy, do we have work to do. So hence, I got put in charge of the fan experience area, which has been great. So over the course now of the last 5 years, we've gone from 30 to 27 to 18 to 16. This year, we're up to number 5. So that tells me that the data we're accumulating and the information we're getting, we're going to affect change and say, okay, our fans are frustrated about this. Let's go do something about it and fix it. So that tells me relationships are always strong. We always felt good about that. Now, from an experience standpoint, we're really starting to lock in and say, it's about inviting people into your house. Let's make sure that they're having a great time.
Yeah. And pain points, right? Like you hit on a lot of, it's just figuring out those pain points. And I know the challenge would be like, think if you asked Ty or Meg, your 2 kids, right, to fill out a survey when they were in high school, how excited are they going to be, right, to fill out that survey versus it's you, it's me, and it's an adult, right? Yeah. But getting that feedback, no matter how you get it, no question is super important. I'm always encouraging people, every campus I go to work on, you have to survey your current students every year. Otherwise, how do you know how they're feeling, like you said, about all the different aspects of the student experience? And you hit on just, hey, there are little important things like, is the area clean, right? How quickly do they get through the door? Do they feel like they're waiting in the concession line for like 3 hours? Do they like the food that we're serving, or do they think it's gross? And like trying to figure out all of that, no question. And then saying, how do we put actionable things into, play, I think is super important. And so, from there, I kind of want to shift gears a little bit because you said something that kind of piqued my interest. You obviously, I'll call you the liaison, right, for all these different groups that are within Target Center. How do you get everybody on the same page in terms of, listen, we're all, yes, the people doing concessions, or yes, the people doing ticket sales, they have their own goals, but yet the whole goal is the same in the macro. It's the fan experience. How do you, as somebody in a position of leadership, walk me through how that works effectively in your world in terms of collaboration and getting all these different groups and organizations on the same page?
Yeah, this is an awesome question and near and dear to my heart because we always explain this whenever we onboard staff. So I'm going to go back to and I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. So we were doing really good on the relationship side, and we started saying, we should check in on this fan experience standpoint. Again, we're a tenant in a city-owned building. So at the time, it was the two teams, Timberwolves and Lynx. ASM, previously AEG, ran the building on behalf of the city. We had Delaware North as our concessionaire, which is now Levy. So we had 4 different ways we onboarded staff, 4 different ways we trained staff, 4 different ways we recognized staff. So we are all over the place. And so when we got that data back, and we were 30 out of 30, we brought in all the department heads and just said, here it is. And again, this isn't here to point fingers. This is just simply saying we have some work to do as a building and a venue and a teams. So of course, none of us are happy about that grade. When you're getting graded amongst all your brethren around the NBA. So first thing we said is that, look, again, not to point fingers, but how do we get on the same page here? So we started just having really deep discussions and just said, let's get all the challenges that's preventing us from being better on the table. If you're mad about something or if you're mad at someone, let's hear it. Again, let's get it all out now. So what we found was we're so disjointed from an onboarding and training standpoint, we weren't talking the same language. One group was saying, well, if there's a problem in concessions, this way we're going to handle it. Maybe on the team side would say, well, I don't know, is that really the way we want to handle it?
So how'd you get everybody on the same page though, Jeff? Like, what did you do?
Here's what we did. We just started saying, look, let's go learn who else is really good at service. So we started throwing out Target, Starbucks, Zappos, all these different venues. We kept coming back to Disney. So we just said, Disney, boy, they do guest care as good as anybody in the country. So I said, let's go learn from them. So I went down and went through the Disney curriculum twice. Our assistant in our area went down once. Several people from the building went down and said, let's go learn. We don't have to copy them exactly, but let's take elements of what makes them tick and bring them into the Target Center and Timberwolves and Lynx. Let's see if we can make this work. So we've now basically revamped, restructured everything that we do. So now instead of 4 different ways we onboard and do orientation, it's 1, and it comes from us. So the fan experience group now trains every single employee that comes in. So now we have one united message. Now we train to one united message, and we recognize to one united message. And so now we're not disjointed. Everybody's got their own group. It's just simply we have what's called our one service platform. Everybody trains and onboards that way. So to get everybody on the same page, that was not easy. But I think now people are seeing the merits of the ranking system has dramatically improved. Our fan experience has dramatically improved. Everybody's happier. We're all working together. We're taking data, again, not to point fingers, but just saying, hey, congratulations, concessions. You guys got a great mark for the last homestand. This is awesome. Let's recognize those staff members that are involved. So really it was that. And there's many more tentacles to that, but that's kind of I was going to say that it's a Reader's Digest version, but I actually talked quite a bit.
Well, and leadership, I always say this, and tell me if you disagree or agree, leadership has to obviously drive the bus, right, when it comes to that type of change. You know, but obviously I always think it's challenging when it's competing priorities, right? Because people haven't, sat down to your point and kind of said, well, here's what we think. And no question, the highest functioning admissions and enrollment teams I see out there, Jeff, when I'm doing my work, it's people who are sitting down and to your point, they're taking data in real time and they're analyzing it. And they're not pointing fingers, but they're saying, okay, but they don't like this. Yep, they really like this. Oh, wait, this looks like something we need to talk about. I don't know how else you can do it if you don't all get in a room together. And so to your point, I love it. And I think, training obviously is something that you do a ton of. It's something that obviously is in my wheelhouse that I do a ton of. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about hiring new staff. When you interview people, how important, for example, is like previous or similar work experience in customer service versus like Jeremy, I'm looking for intangible qualities, or the people that are doing the hiring. I'll take A and B if they can do this really well, even if they've never worked in professional sports or customer service. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what I'd say, I'm going to reference this as pre-COVID or maybe now post-COVID. So obviously during COVID, it was a challenge for every property, every service property, right? Everybody's short staffed. A lot of people are taking early retirement, not wanting to come into a building or a venue with COVID going around. So that was a huge challenge. Actually, still is a challenge. I think as sports operators and venue operators, we're down about 30%. So with that, I would say that you're skipping some steps to just make sure that you're staffed accordingly. In an ideal situation, and I'll say coming out of COVID now and going towards the fall when we start hiring again, we're looking for energy and enthusiasm. So we can teach the rest. I mean, we sell sports tickets. This should be fun. And we are looking for people that will have fun with other people. So, for us, in the hospitality industry, in the sports venue industry, for us, it's all about interaction and engagement with the fans. So if it's someone that just doesn't have those traits, it's much harder to instill those training techniques into saying, hey, are you high-fiving? What's happening in your section tonight? Who's excited about being here? And if you got somebody that's like, I don't know, I'm not sure. Well, that's not going to work. We need somebody that's going to say, oh my goodness, I am having so much fun tonight. And the folks in my section tonight are having a great time. In fact, I got to introduce you to Jeremy. He's got an anniversary tonight. We should do something for them. Now we're hitting the marks. So that's it. If you hire poorly, man, is it hard to overcome it, right? You just got to hire good people. And for us, it's about energy and enthusiasm.
Hey, all, Zach here from Enrollify. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, admissions, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks that are all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. Our shows feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Mickey Baines, Jeremy Tiers, Jaime Hunt, Corynn Myers, Jaime Gleason, and many, many more. You can learn more about the Enrollify Podcast Network at podcasts.enrollify.org. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea. Find yours at podcasts.enrollify.org.
Yeah, and I think anybody, listening, obviously, if you're doing relationship building, if you're doing customer service, like so many of you are, you 100%, in my mind, just like you said, I'm less concerned with, again, how much is your knowledge of all of the stuff behind the scenes that we can teach you, and how much of it is you understand how to treat people, you're empathetic, it's clear you care, and this isn't something that you just are doing because it's a job and you really don't seem to enjoy it any much. I love that, and I think it's something that a lot of industries, including higher ed, could take in terms of how they onboard new staff. How much time, by the way, Jeff, do you spend on training? Like, I can't believe you're just doing one training, like you said, when the fan experience team onboards, whatever it might be, from a new employee standpoint. What are you doing throughout the year ongoing in terms of training, or just sharing all that data with all these different groups that you're obviously dealing with, so that you can see opportunities? Or is it, no, we only do it like a couple of times a year?
Yeah, so we'll do a large non-COVID again. Obviously, COVID, it's been, everybody's off kilter here a little bit. But I would say planning for the fall, our normal situation, you'd have a large kickoff. You would get everybody in a room, everybody in our building, and kick off. And like, here we go. This is going to be awesome. Can't wait for the season. So we have a kickoff. Then you have small splinter groups from there. So you might get into more specifics from there. So your ushers and guest services team may have another splinter meeting. You might have your security team, concessions, and so on. So then that's going to be probably a quarterly check-in. But then what happens is we get involved in every single pre-shift throughout the year at every game. So every game, we get a little opportunity where myself and the other fan experience staff will come in and jump in for anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes every single night into ushers, security, concessions, custodial, and it could be to talk a little bit about the game. It could be a little bit to talk about, hey, here's some data that we received, and we want to recognize Jeremy for doing a great job. He had 6 emails that came in talking about how great he is with the fans. And then the other thing that we do is we've created a recognition program where every single night we honor 5 different staff members at halftime of the game. We give those different members 4 tickets so they can bring their family, so they see themselves get honored with their family. Players are all down there, warming up, doing their thing. Sometimes they'll come in and fist bump everybody or jump in their photo. We recognize in front of 15 to 20,000 people. Then we take a photo, we frame that up, and then we present that back in a pre-shift. So the pre-shifts are really good tight little reminders for us to come in and say, hey, as we know, this is all about how we're treating our fans. I wanted to share a little article, and 2 sentences from this article I thought were really cool. It's enforcements, then it's opportunity to recognize.
Yeah, and I love that. And help me understand, is that something you came up with, Jeff, or is that something a staff member at some point 10, 20 years ago brought and said, hey, we need to do more to recognize these different, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so again, it's getting all the staff together, the department heads together, and asking what would be really meaningful. And so we've done a variety of different things, but I think having it become really personal, where they get to get recognized in front of their peers and all the fans, and their family gets to come, and they get a framed photo commemorating that opportunity. You've probably seen some of my stuff on social media. I always post that every night. That is such a big deal. You'll get hit up throughout the night. Well, here's the other thing that we do too. So it's just a lot of hand-to-hand combat as well. Every single night, I'm going to get through and fist bump, high five, have a short conversation with anywhere from 50 to 100 staff members. I might not get to everybody every single night, but over the course of a homestand, I'm going to get to everybody at least once. And it's going to be it's not really anything about the game. It's just like, how's your weekend?
Yeah.
Hey, I understand your son got married here recently. How was the wedding? How great was it? Chance to ask them some open-ended questions to, again, a relationship build. If we're building relationships, really core good relationships with the staff, they're going to execute all the different platforms with our fans.
Yeah, and one-on-one and I love that. And one-on-one is so important, Jeff. And I talk with vice presidents of enrollment and, vice presidents of marketing, directors, anybody who manages staff. I drill home, listen, number one, they have to feel like you're invested in them, right? But number two, that's not just by having weekly or bi-weekly staff meetings where everybody's in the room together. There has to be one-on-one, right? That happens where that person feels like you're going above and beyond to make it about them and their growth. So I love that. And talk to me, just give me a minute or two real quick here. What are some of the other programs that you've developed, like the One Moment program, for example, or, stuff you're doing with the staff? I wrote down a couple of things. The bingo thing you're doing, I remember you talked to me about at one point years ago. I don't even know if you're still doing that, but just real quick, what are some other ways that you find to drill in this, hey, we want to have a culture of having people who want to work here, who enjoy it, and want to continue to do it?
Yeah, so we did a couple things this year. We went again and we asked the staff, what's important to you to work here? Why do you like working here? And oftentimes it's pretty close to where I live, or I'm such a Bassel fan. I love being here. It's all those reasons. But we just said, well, what can make things more efficient or easier for you? So here's one of the craziest things, Jeremy, is so funny because one of the things that came up again and again and again was that, what would be really cool was when you hand out 5,000 items to the fans, could be a hat, a bobblehead, a pennant, whatever, could we start getting those? And we had never done that before. So it was as simple as really, these things cost us $1.98, $2.50, and this was a huge deal. So our staff was just saying, boy, if I could walk away with the hat or the pennant or the bobblehead, that'd be really cool. And we're like, okay. So we started adding to our order to ensure that every single staff member that worked that night got that item. And you'd think that a little bobblehead or a pennant is kind of trivial. It is a huge deal. Huge deal. So we did that. Another thing is downtown parking is pretty tough. So a lot of folks were just saying, boy, finding a spot to park and getting here is kind of tough. So we went over and negotiated terms with one of the parking ramps that is adjacent to Target Center, and we just said, would you get if we guaranteed you parking spots every single night of anywhere from 250 to 500, would you give us a great rate? We'll then pay for the staff to park. So they gave us a rate of $3. We now pay for the part-time staff parkers. And so for them, that's just rather than paying $12 to $15 to park, it was just simply an idea that came from our staff by asking them what's important to them. And now people are just like, man, why wouldn't I work? This is great.
Well, and to your point, right? Word spreads and word of mouth will always continue to be, I always say king, queen, however you want to think of it. But I think back to just what we've talked about here today, Jeff, and so much of it goes back to finding opportunities, obviously, to connect with somebody, to create conversations, whether it's you as a leader with your staff, it's a ticket person with a season ticket holder, right? It's somebody in concessions trying to learn more about the world of, some other person who works at Target Center. I don't know if there's a better way, right, to have a successful event or organization if you don't have all of these conversations and figure out, well, what are people looking for and what do they enjoy most about this? And I just feel like in too many industries, including higher education, that's we'll do that once a year and we'll do. And so I hope everybody listening, understands the importance of that has to be an ongoing thing you do throughout the year. Because that consistency, like you said earlier, Jeff, is so important. I love it. I love it.
I'd say one thing to that too is, this is what I've always challenged myself and then our staff to do. And again, some people remember names and faces better than others. But I always try to believe that have one little nugget about everybody you come in contact with, so you can share it. So maybe it's a show that they like, or maybe it's their hometown, or maybe they have a favorite team or a favorite player. So I can walk up and say, Jeremy, in the past you coached at Bemidji State. So I might say, hey Jeremy, big win for Bemidji State last night. That was huge. They're going to the tournament. And suddenly you're like, oh wow, you remembered it. I was involved with Bemidji State. Well, that's kind of cool. So just one little nugget oftentimes will do it.
Yeah, literally. And I'll give you a quick story. The young man that I hired, who now is one of my coworkers, Ethan Penland, I met Ethan the first time I did the second ever workshop when I started working at Tudor Collegiate Strategies. And I was standing in the Starbucks on campus at the University of North Georgia at the time. And here walks down Ethan. We hadn't started the training yet. I hadn't met any of the staff. But of course, I had done my homework ahead of time. And I literally said, morning, Ethan, as he's walking down the stairs. And he looked at me like, who the heck is this guy? And why is he saying... And obviously the training went and, the training went well. And Ethan and I stayed in touch over the years. And even when he came on board last fall and started working with TCS, he said, Jeremy, I'll never forget that story. I'll always remember you coming down the stairs and just something little as to you knowing who I was and saying good morning. I think those things, one moments or, I know, whatever you want to call them are just so important when it comes to developing relationships with people. So I love it. Well, Jeff, if people want to connect with you on social media, give a couple shout outs. Where can they do that? Where's the best place to just check you out and find?
Sure. So I'm kind of on all the different platforms. You can see all my silly stuff I'm putting out there all the time. It's under Minnesota Mune. So it's spell out Minnesota and then add MUNN, which is short for my last name, Munneke. So at Minnesota Mune is Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for me. Those are the platforms I utilize most. And give me a follow and I'll follow you right back.
All right, well, I'm going to end with this, Jeff. We're going to do a signature question at the end of every podcast episode I do, and so you get to be person number one to do this. I would love for you just to tell me what's one important piece of advice that somebody gave you at some point in your life that has really stuck with you even to this day.
Yeah, so what I'd say, in fact, I was just talking yesterday to a young student about this. Never stop building relationships. Just never stop. And again, I said it right at the beginning. When you're doing that, make every single person feel like they're the most important person in the room. So I always feel like I would like to believe that when people get done talking to me, they can walk away like, oh boy, Jeff's a pretty good dude. He's pretty cool. I would be mortified if there's anything but that. But just network and build relationships and make people feel really important. So I can't emphasize it enough.
Totally agree, and it's my mantra that I live by too, right? I mean, when you treat people, all right, the way they would want to be treated, and when it's clear, right, you're investing in them a lot of times, that's all it takes to get them to invest back in you. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we sign off, we're going to do some fun, what I call random rapid fire, Jeff. Better dinner spot in Minneapolis, JD Hoyt's or Murray's?
JD Hoyt's.
True or false, you guarded Dennis Rodman in college and he scored 38 points and 26 rebounds on you?
True.
Better wrestler, Hulk Hogan or Macho Man Randy Savage?
Oh, I'm going to go Hulk.
Oh, that's very disappointing. True or false, you saw Karl Anthony Towns drive a golf ball 400 yards?
True.
100% true?
100% true.
That blows my mind, by the way.
And as with Jim Peterson, one of our broadcasters, was with me as well.
And last but not least, give me and give everybody listening a PGA Championship prediction.
Rory McIlroy.
I love it. Jeff, I really appreciate you being on the show. Good luck tonight.
Hey, all, Zach here from Enrollify. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mission Admissions with Jeremy Tiers. If you like this episode, do us a huge favor and hit that follow and subscribe button below. Furthermore, if you've got just 2 minutes to spare, we would greatly appreciate you leaving a rating and a review of this show on Apple Podcasts. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, admissions, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks that are all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. But Enrollify is far more than just a podcast network. Enrollify is where higher ed comes to learn new marketing skills, discover new products and services, and find their next job. We're a growing learning community of 4,000 members, and we'd love to welcome you into the fold. You can access our free blog articles, newsletters, e-courses, and more, or purchase our master course on how to market a university with Terry Flannery at enrollify.org. We look forward to meeting you soon and welcoming you into the community. Again, you can subscribe for free at enrollify.org.